The ugliest thing anyone has ever said to me was said quietly, with a tax form in his hand. "It's a whorehouse, Maya." Daniel didn't shout. He didn't throw anything. He just stood in our kitchen with a manila folder open, a 1099 miss clipped to the top with my stage name typed where my legal name should have been, and he said a word I've spent 5 years pretending would never be used in a sentence about me. I had been looking for the meat thermometer. He had been looking for painter's tape. The folder was in the same drawer as the tape because my brain hides hard things near useful things. Bills behind batteries, shame under scissors. He slid the paper out gently, like you handle a document that can explode. The name on the payer line was the LLC of a licensed brothel in Lyon County, Nevada. The year, 2017. The amount, enough to make a 22-year-old who'd been living on instant noodles feel like she could finally breathe. He set the paper on the counter like evidence and pressed his palms flat beside it. Daniel is a paramedic, he's good at hands. I've seen those hands restart hearts and braid my hair on tired Sundays. They didn't shake now. Mine did. "I told you I did things I wasn't proud of," I said, my voice hitching on the coward's ellipsis. "You said the past was the past." "I said honesty was the deal," he replied, steady. "Asked you, point blank, if there was anything I needed to know before we got married. You said just dumb choices, then joked about a nose ring. This." He tapped the 1099, not hard, just enough to make the binder clip click. "Is not a nose ring." I was young and dumb, I said, because that phrase had gotten me through 100 small confessions. It sounded tinny now, like a spoon in an empty can. His mouth flattened. He looked at the receipt pile, the spice rack, anywhere but my face. "You weren't stupid," he said, which hurt more. "You were broke. You were scared. You made a plan. And then you lied to me about it." I reached for him, without thinking. He stepped back half an inch, not flinching, just removing his heat from my reach. "It was legal," I blurted. "Lyon County. Licensed. Condoms were mandatory. Weekly health checks. Stage name. Taxes paid." The facts lined up like soldiers, useless in the face of the thing I'd actually done wrong. I hadn't told him. He exhaled. "I know where Lyon County is, Maya. I know brothels are illegal in Clark and Washoe, but legal out there. I know they're independent contractors and report on a 1099. I also know we are in Chicago, and you're marrying me, and I had to find out from a form you hid behind tape." The word marrying hit me like a hiccup. The ring felt suddenly heavy on my finger. We were 8 months out from a wedding with a venue overlooking the river and a band that plays Springsteen well enough to make my mother cry. My mother doesn't know about Lyon County. Neither does Daniel's. I sat because my knees stopped being interested in their job. I didn't hide it because I think it's shameful. I lied first because shame is a ventriloquist that hates silence. I hid it because I didn't know how to make you see me after you heard it. "How did you think I'd see you?" he asked softly. "Less," I said. It came out small. He looked at me like he was cataloging a wound. "I don't think less of you for surviving 22. I think less of you for choosing me at 30, taking my trust, and deciding I didn't deserve the full story." He picked up the 1099 and read my stage name out loud. June. I had liked how it sounded. Round and warm, a month you step into. He said it like it was a stranger we'd found sitting at our table. "How long?" he asked. 6 weekends, I said. 2 months. I quit when I had enough to pay the car note and get out of my roommate's lease. I took my last STI test, signed out, and drove east until my shoulders dropped. I stared at a water ring on the counter. I boxed the paperwork and told myself I'd be someone who never had to open it again. He nodded. "And then you met me, and you opened a different box, and you closed this one tighter." "I told you I had a past," I said, weak. "You told me you had exes who didn't deserve names," he said. "You told me you regretted 2 tattoos, and that you cut your hair into bangs once and cried. You told me you were wild in college the way people use that word when they want to be interesting but harmless." He pointed to the form. "You didn't tell me you worked in a brothel." I thought of the orientation speech my first night. The house manager had nails that could open letters and a voice like the DMV. She had explained the rules. Condoms always, weekly tests, no leaving the property with clients, no drugs, no one under 21, no cameras, no real names. She had said no shame like a policy, and I had believed her for 6 weekends. I still believe her, kind of. I also believe that my real sin now wasn't the work, it was the secret. "I loved you," I said, realizing too late that I'd chosen past tense because my tongue panics when my heart does. I love you, I corrected, clumsy. I wanted to be the version of me you met. Competent, kind, the HR generalist who brings muffins on hard Mondays. I didn't want to be the girl who filled out a W-9 with a false name and put cash in a coffee can. He rubbed his forehead. He looked tired. Daniel looks tired a lot. Saving people does that. This tired was different. This was the tired that comes from deciding which part of you to protect. Did you think it wouldn't come up? He asked. Marriage is paperwork. Insurance and wills and trust and picking beneficiaries. I asked you last week if there were any 1099s or freelance gigs I should know for taxes. You said, nope, just my W-2 and the 401k. You looked me in the eye. I panicked, I said. I thought if I said it right then, the conversation would swallow everything. It wouldn't have, he said. The lying did. He walked to the window, stared out at our quiet street. The neighbor's wind chimes clinked like a nervous laugh. I won't put you on blast, he said finally. I'm not texting anyone. I'm not telling the guys at the station. I'm not hinting to my sister. I'm not that man. I nodded, tears hot. But I won't marry you, he said, turning back. He said it clean, not cruel. I can love you and still refuse to build a life on a floor you made out of secrets. I won't argue about this with you at 2 a.m. When we have a baby and you're sleep deprived and I'm on shift and some fight needs an old shame to fuel it. I won't do it. I can be honest now, I said, bargaining like a gambler who just watched the dealer shuffle her luck away. Ask me anything. I'll answer. Anything. He shook his head. That's not a quiz, he said. That's a posture. I need a partner who volunteers what matters before I find it behind tape. Then he did a thing I will be grateful for until I die. He took my hands, those dependable paramedic hands, and said, return the ring to me on Friday. I'll send the vendor matrix tonight, and I'll handle the cancellations and see what we can salvage without torching our finances. In Illinois, the engagement ring is a conditional gift in contemplation of marriage. No wedding, ring goes back to the giver, regardless of fault. I'm not using the law to beat you with. I'm using it so we don't extend this fight into something pettier. He squeezed once. I'm going to my brother's tonight. I'll let you have the apartment until the end of the month. I'll move my stuff this weekend while you're at your mom's. I won't make a scene. I will be decent. I ask the same. I nodded because the other choice was to turn into someone I didn't want to be. I'll be decent, I whispered. He left with a backpack and his toothbrush and the folder because he handles paperwork when he's wounded, and that is why people live. The door clicked. Not a slam. A click. I sat at the table and opened the past like a file. Because that is what it was, and pretending otherwise was how I'd landed here. I was 22 and 2 months behind on a car payment and one catastrophic dental bill away from selling my laptop. My roommate had told me she was moving in with a boyfriend for a trial run, and that I could have the lease if I wanted to keep paying for that moldy shoebox alone. I worked part-time at a smoothie place and part-time at a call center that refurbished phones. I was tired, always, and had a talent for slicing my grocery budget into the exact number of days before overdraft. My cousin Tia, who was 25 and always had money for nails and brunch, took me to Nevada to work a weekend. She was vague at first. Bottle service, she said. Ditch. Then, in the car somewhere between Barstow and a horizon that didn't move, she said it. It's a brothel, May. A legal one. You don't have to do anything. But if you do, it's safer than the world wants you to believe. She was casual in the way people are when they've rehearsed speech enough to make it look easy. She told me about mandatory condoms, weekly health checks, a house cut that felt like a robbery, and then felt like the cost of doing business, rules about no drugs, no leaving with clients, no real names. She told me things I already knew about men, and things I didn't, like how regulars bring groceries sometimes and how kindness isn't currency, but it buys you air. I said no. Then I said maybe. Then I said yes. I told myself it would be one weekend. It was 6. I was good at it in the way I am good at most jobs. I learned the rules, I did the paperwork, I made people feel seen. I picked June because it felt like the version of me who left windows open. I bought a cheap suitcase and one black dress. I got tested every week, signed forms, filed my W-9 with a stage name, and pretended the tax implications didn't make me feel like I was writing my secret in ink. I sent 2 car payments in 1 month. I took my roommate out to dinner and paid with cash and watched her eyes widen. I slept like a person who had spent a night pretending sleep was unnecessary. After the 6th weekend, I quit. I moved back to Chicago and took a full-time receptionist job that turned into HR because I can talk to people without making them feel like news is a weapon. I did not look back. I did not open the folder. I met Daniel at a CPR training when our nonprofits paired up for a preparedness seminar, and everyone else wrote "Compression Save Lives" on their worksheets like a joke. He wrote it like a belief. I told him I'd been messy. I told him I'd been wild. I did not tell him that June had paid off a car. When you hide something sharp in your house, you cut yourself eventually. I sliced us. Daniel's vendor matrix arrived that night like a funeral program written by an accountant. Venue: deposit non-refundable but transferable if date rebooks. He'd already asked them to list it. Partial hope. Band: retainer non-refundable, credit transferable. He told them to keep it and donate their time to a community event if they felt like it. Photographer: deposit lost, offered credit. He told me I could use it for something else someday. Caterer: half back because we were outside the 60-day window. Officiant: his uncle, no money exchanged, only embarrassment required. He had marked each cell green, yellow, or red. He wrote, "We'll split losses 50/50ths. I'll Venmo you the net if I end up overpaying on cancellations I placed on my card. Please return any gifts already received." I stared at the spreadsheet and cried at the kindness of a man who could have done anger and chose logistics. On Friday, I put the ring in its box and the box in an envelope and the envelope on the hall table. When he texted coming up, I opened the door before he knocked. He looked like a man who had cried in the shower and then decided to look like someone who hadn't. "Here," I said, and handed him the envelope like medicine. He gave me a typed receipt to sign because he is a person who understands the places where future fights hide. It said, "Received from M." The engagement ring originally given on September 2nd, 2024, solitaire, yellow gold, returned on May 9th, 2025. He dated it. I signed. I watched his hands tuck the box into his coat like he was returning a relic to a museum. "I can repay you for the deposits," I said, because money was the only tool I had left and I wanted to use it like a wrench on a bolt that had already snapped. "No," he said, not unkindly. "We'll split as we said. We're not turning this into a debt you pay me for existing. Do you think I belong in a—" I couldn't finish the word. It sat between us like a dare. He closed his eyes for a beat. "Anger says things," he said quietly. "I'm not proud of that word. I'm not going to wear it." He opened his eyes. "I think you belonged where you were when you were 22. Scared and cornered and clever. I think you belong now in a life that doesn't need a lie to be held together. I think I belong with someone who tells me the hard thing before the tax form does." He left. The door clicked again. The apartment exhaled. My mother came over an hour later with groceries because mothers know when the wind changes. I told her everything. She cried the way women cry when a different generation's shame collides with this generation's vocabulary. Then she wiped her face and said, "You should have told him. There was no sermon about sex work, no lecture about God. Just that. You should have told him. I thought he'd see me as dirty," I whispered. She took my face in her hands like I was still 8, feverish on the couch. "I have watched you mop up other people's messes for 5 years," she said. "You are not dirty. But your secrets are sticky." I went to therapy, on purpose. I said the word brothel in a room with a couch that didn't flinch. I quit using young and dumb as a talisman. I practiced sentences like reps at the gym. I did sex work legally for a short time when I was in a crisis. If that's a deal breaker, I'd rather know early. The first time I said it out loud, my throat burned. The second time, it didn't. The third, the room didn't feel like a courtroom. I sent 2 emails I owed. One to the brothel's admin account. "Please confirm you do not release worker information publicly." They replied with language I remembered from the contract years ago. "Confidentiality, no photography, releases only with subpoenas." Another to a nonprofit I donate to now. "Do you have any resources for people leaving legal sex work who need help with resumes and interviews?" They sent a PDF with a list longer than I expected. It made me feel less like a permanent exception. Daniel did not post a thing. He did not subtweet me. He did not like anything pointed. He returned RSVPs for family. He called his uncle. He let his mother think we had grown apart and let her be disappointed without arming her with my biography. He updated his payroll to single. He emailed the venue weekly until they rebooked our date to a couple who was thrilled to get a Saturday cheap and wrote him a thank you that made me cry. When the partial refund hit, he split it without me asking and sent me a note. Transferred your half. He won by being boring in the most graceful ways, by keeping his dignity in a drawer where it belongs, by refusing to use my shame to make his pain louder, by doing math instead of theater. I wrote him one letter. Longhand. I didn't defend. I apologized for the lie, not the work, because I had finally learned the difference. I wrote, I clung to an image of myself and used you to hold it up. You deserve the person, not the image. I thanked him for not burning my life down on his way out. He replied with 2 lines. Thank you for the letter. I wish you well. He signed his name like a period, not an invitation. It has been months. I tell the truth now, early, before affection grows around lies like ivy. Some men vanish. A few ask questions that make me feel like a diagram. One said, that's brave, and I realized I hate that word in this context. The best ones say, thank you for telling me. I can't guarantee my life ends with a wedding. I can guarantee I won't make a man pass a secret test to deserve one. If you're reading because you want a verdict on whether my past should have mattered, wrong question. The question is whether my present was honest. It wasn't. Daniel's decision not to marry me was not a referendum on sex work, it was a referendum on secrecy. He didn't punish me with poverty. He didn't punish me with gossip. He punished me with absence, which is the only punishment that isn't cruelty when trust breaks. Do I regret Lyon County? Sometimes. Rarely. Mostly I regret the way I weaponized a sanitized story to keep a good man close. Legal doesn't mean harmless. Illegal doesn't mean monstrous. I made choices inside the constraints of a country that punishes poor girls and calls it policy. Then I made a different choice. Lying. That punished someone who'd done nothing to me but love me honestly. This is not a redemption arc. It's a ledger. On the left, 6 weekends, 1 folder, a car payment, cash in a coffee can, a stage name I can't say without feeling both affection and nausea. On the right, 1 man who will go on to marry someone who never makes him wonder what's hidden behind the painter's tape, a canceled band, a venue rebooked by a couple that sent an email with too many exclamation points, a deposit split, a ring returned with a receipt, a woman who learned to stop treating disclosure like a cliff and more like a door you open early before someone bumps into it in the dark. Daniel will be fine, he already is. He'll keep hauling strangers out of wrecks and humming in the kitchen while he makes scrambled eggs in that pan I told him was too scratched, and he kept anyway because he liked it. He'll find a woman who asks him whether he likes his towels folded in thirds or halves, and then tells him something hard about her past on a Tuesday afternoon without a dramatic soundtrack. He'll say thank you and mean it. He won't use a spreadsheet to fix everything, but he'll use it when a spreadsheet is the right tool. He'll win by living the rest of his life without needing a story about me to make him the hero. Me? I bought a file box with labels. I put the birth certificate there, the passport, the W-2s, and yes, the old 1099 in a sleeve behind medical records, because pretending it never existed is just another lie. I labeled the tab 2017. Taxes. Not shame. Not June. Just what it is. When I start to say, young and dumb, I stop at young. When a man asks me, anything I should know? I don't make a joke about bangs. I tell him 1 clean paragraph, then I watch what he does with it. I look for Daniel's kinda quiet. I earn it by matching it. If it costs me another ring someday, I'll at least know I didn't make the price higher by adding interest called secrets. He said whorehouse in my kitchen, and I hated the word, and I hated that it belonged in our air. But the sentence that mattered wasn't the insult. It was the one that followed. I won't marry you. Not because of where you were at 22, but because of who you decided to be at 30 when I asked you for the truth. He left with quiet dignity. That's the win. The rest is just paperwork.